Silence is not emptiness. Silence is power. When you pull away from the noise of constant opinions, endless notifications, and the pressure to perform for others, you discover the raw truth of who you are. The world trains you to seek validation outside of yourself, to measure your worth by approval, attention, or applause. But the deepest kind of strength comes when you stop waiting for someone to recognize you and you begin to recognize yourself. This is not withdrawal. This is not isolation. This is reclaiming your focus, sharpening your mind, and protecting the sacred energy that is too often wasted on people who don't truly see you. When you step back into silence, your mind resists. It craves stimulation. It craves the pull of distraction because distraction feels safer than facing your true reflection. But silence teaches resilience. It teaches you to sit with discomfort, to breathe through restlessness, and to understand that clarity only comes when the noise is gone. A distracted mind is a weak mind. A focused mind is unstoppable. This is why you must detach, not from life, not from purpose, but from the unhealthy ties that chain your energy to things you cannot control. Detachment is not indifference. It is wisdom. It is choosing peace over chaos, self-respect over approval, clarity over confusion. When you stop fighting for space in someone else's story, you finally begin to write your own. The more you detach, the more you notice how much weight you were carrying that never belonged to you. Opinions, expectations, judgments, all of them shape the way you walked, spoke, and even dreamed. But in silence, that weight drops. You see how much lighter you become when you stop chasing after people who never wanted to understand you in the first place. And with every ounce of energy you reclaim, you grow stronger. Stronger in thought, stronger in spirit, stronger in action. The human brain thrives on focus. Psychologists call it selective attention. The ability to tune out what doesn't matter and amplify what does. But most people never practice it. They scatter their attention on dozens of meaningless distractions and then wonder why they feel empty at night. You are not meant to give your life to distractions. You are meant to give your life to purpose. Focus is fuel. And the moment you learn to withdraw your attention from the noise, you ignite an inner fire that nothing outside of you can touch. Detachment and silence are not punishments. They are training grounds. They train your heart to stop depending on the temporary highs of external approval. They train your mind to sharpen like a blade cutting through every excuse that once held you back. They train your soul to listen to its own voice, the voice that has been buried under years of noise waiting for you to return. This is why silence feels uncomfortable at first, because in silence the truth comes alive, and truth always demands courage. The courage to stand alone, the courage to walk away from anything that insults your growth, the courage to value your peace so much that you refuse to trade it for drama, validation, or shallow attention. Once you taste the freedom that comes from focusing on yourself and detaching in silence, you will never go back to the chaos you once called normal, because you will know the truth. Silence is not weakness. Silence is transformation. And transformation begins the moment you stop running from yourself and finally decide to stand still, to listen, to rise. When you begin to detach, you discover how much of your suffering was never about reality, but about attachment to what you wished reality would be. The mind clings. It clings to people, to outcomes, to recognition, and it convinces you that without these attachments, you are nothing. But that is the greatest lie you have ever been told. You are not defined by what leaves you. You are not reduced by what ignores you. You are expanded by what you choose to focus on. Detachment is the art of releasing your grip on what drains you so that your hands are free to build what strengthens you. The silence you step into is not empty. It is full of answers you could not hear before. When the noise fades, you begin to notice the voice within that tells you where your energy belongs. That inner voice is your compass. It directs you toward growth, toward peace, toward authenticity. But it only speaks in silence. If you keep surrounding yourself with noise, you will never hear it. Every unnecessary distraction you hold on to drowns out the wisdom your own soul is offering you. That is why silence is not a luxury. It is survival. Detach from the belief that your value depends on being seen. Greatness does not need a spotlight. Strength does not need applause. The oak tree grows tall in the forest whether anyone is watching or not. Its roots run deep, its presence unshakable because it is not trying to impress. It is simply being what it was meant to be. You must become like that, rooted in purpose, unshaken by opinions, strong because you know your worth, without anyone having to confirm it. Psychology teaches us that attention is the currency of the mind. Whatever you invest your attention in grows stronger in your life. You pour it into drama, you will live in chaos. If you pour it into comparison, you will live in insecurity. But if you pour it into growth, you will live in strength. Detachment is simply the decision to stop funding what weakens you. It is choosing where your attention goes with precision, with discipline, with intent. And once you make that choice, you become unstoppable. The silence that once felt uncomfortable becomes your sanctuary. It is where you recharge, where you remember who you are, where you sharpen your focus until it cuts through every distraction that tries to pull you back. Most people run from silence because they fear their own thoughts. You embrace it because you know it is the furnace where your transformation takes place. Silence refines you. Detachment frees you. Focus empowers you. Do not confuse detachment with coldness. It is not about pushing people away. It is about protecting your energy so that the right people, the ones aligned with your growth, can find you. When you no longer cling to what is toxic, you create space for what is healthy. When you stop chasing what does not value you, you create room for what truly does. This is how life works. You do not attract what you want by begging for it. You attract it by aligning with it. And alignment requires letting go. The moment you truly detach, you realize you were never losing anything. You were gaining clarity, you were gaining strength, you were gaining the freedom to focus on the life you were meant to live. And in that freedom, you become something rare, a person who cannot be shaken by noise, a person who does not need approval to move forward, a person who has built an unbreakable core in the quiet power of silence. The strength you are searching for has always been within you, but it cannot emerge while you are entangled in the noise of others. Every time you cling to external approval, you weaken your inner voice. Every time you chase validation, you silence the guidance that already knows the way. Detachment restores this power. It is the act of pulling back your energy from where it never belonged and pouring it into the one place that truly matters, yourself. And when you do this, a shift happens. The anxiety that once controlled you begins to dissolve. The fear of being misunderstood begins to fade. You realize that you are no longer living for recognition, you are living for truth. Human beings are wired to seek belonging, but true belonging does not come from molding yourself into what others expect. It comes from standing so firmly in your authenticity that the right people recognize themselves in you. This is why silence and detachment are so vital. They strip away the masks. They reveal the core of who you are without the distortion of external judgment. And in that raw clarity, you no longer beg for a seat at the table. You build your own. The power that once felt distant becomes a daily reality because you are no longer wasting energy fighting battles that were never yours to fight. Focus is the weapon that transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary ones. When you commit to channeling your energy into what matters, you activate a force psychologists call flow, the state where your mind is fully immersed, deeply engaged, and performing at its peak. Flow does not come from distraction. It does not come from scattered attention. It comes from discipline. It comes from shutting out the noise long enough to enter the space where your full potential rises. Silence creates this space. Detachment protects it, and focus ignites it. The world will always try to pull you in 1,000 directions. It will tempt you with comparison, lure you with shortcuts, and pressure you to live for applause instead of purpose. But once you understand the value of silence, these temptations lose their grip. You begin to see them for what they are, illusions designed to keep you chasing shadows while your true power lies dormant. The moment you withdraw from this cycle, you awaken. And in that awakening, you discover that success is not found in proving yourself to others, but in mastering yourself. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop controlling. It means you stop clinging to outcomes, people, and circumstances that are not yours to hold. The paradox is that when you let go, you gain more than you ever imagined. You gain peace of mind. You gain clarity of purpose. You gain strength that cannot be taken away because it is no longer dependent on anything external. The silence that once felt heavy now becomes a source of light. It fuels your discipline, sharpens your focus, and reminds you that the only approval you ever needed was your own. There will come a moment when you realize that your greatest victories were born not in a crowd, but in solitude, not in noise, but in stillness, not in clinging, but in letting go. And in that moment, you will understand that silence was never the absence of sound. It was the presence of power. It was the space where you stop searching outside and finally return home to yourself. And when you live from that place, nothing in this world can break you. The greatest breakthrough happens when you no longer run from solitude, but embrace it as the ground where transformation takes root. Silence is not the absence of life. It is the birthplace of clarity. Within it, the noise of comparison falls away, the grip of insecurity loosens, and the weight of constant expectation dissolves. What remains is the purest version of yourself, untouched by outside influence, unshaken by fleeting judgment. This is where strength begins, not in being louder than the world, but in being so grounded within that nothing external can shake your foundation. The human mind is constantly shaped by whatever it feeds on. Studies show that repeated exposure to negativity rewires the brain toward stress, while focus on growth and gratitude rewires it toward resilience. Detachment is your way of choosing the input. It is your declaration that you will no longer hand over the keys of your mind to chaos. Silence becomes the filter that keeps out the noise and allows only what strengthens you to remain. In that choice, you transform not just how you think, but how you live, how you lead, and how you rise. The power of focus lies in its ability to magnify. Whatever you direct it toward becomes amplified in your reality. This is why distraction is so dangerous, because it magnifies what does not matter until it feels overwhelming. But when you master focus, when you detach from the irrelevant and lock in on what builds you, every step you take compounds, every effort grows, every action aligns with purpose. Progress is no longer scattered, it becomes a straight line toward who you are meant to become. That is the unstoppable force silence makes possible. There is also a profound peace that comes from not needing to control everything, the urge to cling, to manipulate outcomes, to hold on to people who are never meant to stay, only creates suffering. Detachment frees you from this prison. It teaches you that peace is not found in control, but in surrender. By letting go, you open the door to receive what is truly aligned with your growth. You no longer waste your energy forcing what isn't for you. Instead, you focus that energy on building, creating, and becoming. And what once felt like loss begins to feel like liberation. This shift changes how you carry yourself. You stop chasing, you stop begging, you stop proving. There's a quiet confidence in knowing that you are enough as you are and that your path does not depend on anyone else's recognition. That kind of confidence cannot be faked. It is forged in silence. It is born in the moments where you stand alone and still choose to rise. When you understand this, you begin to radiate a strength that others can feel, even if you say nothing at all. Silence gives you back your power because it reminds you that you were never powerless. You were only distracted. You were only giving your strength away to things that did not deserve it. Now, with focus reclaimed and detachment embraced, you rise into a version of yourself that no longer bends under pressure, no longer breaks under judgment, no longer hesitates in fear. You become the person who walks with purpose, lives with clarity, and builds a future not from noise, but from unshakable inner power. The discipline to detach and focus is the highest form of self-respect. It is the decision to no longer allow your energy to be consumed by things that do not build you. Every time you pull away from chaos, every time you choose silence over noise, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was lost. This is not withdrawal from life. It is an awakening to life on your terms. You are no longer living by reaction. You are living by intention. And intention is the foundation of transformation. The truth is, the world will always test you. It will push distractions in front of you. It will tempt you with comparisons, pulling your focus away from your own growth. It will surround you with people who thrive on drama, hoping to pull you into their storm. But storms only have power if you walk into them. Detachment is the refusal to enter. It is the quiet strength of standing in your own calm while chaos rages outside. And from that calm, you see clearly. You see what deserves your attention and what does not. You see which paths lead to growth and which lead to emptiness. Silence deepens this clarity. It slows down the noise of the world so that you can finally hear yourself. It sharpens your mind, strengthens your resilience, and teaches you patience. In a world addicted to constant stimulation, patience becomes a superpower. Patience allows you to build with precision while others rush into mistakes. Patience keeps you steady when others break under pressure. And patience is born in the quiet, not in the noise. It grows when you learn to sit with silence without fear, when you understand that stillness is not wasted time, but sacred space. Focus is the bridge between who you are and who you are becoming. When you direct it toward growth, the distance between your current self and your potential self begins to shrink. Each moment of focus compounds, building momentum, creating transformation that others cannot see until it is undeniable. This is why distractions are so costly. They rob you of momentum. But when you detach, you preserve your momentum. You create a straight path forward while others wander in circles. And on that path, you rise with clarity, strength, and purpose. Psychology reveals that human beings overestimate what they can achieve in the short term, but underestimate what they can achieve in the long term with consistent focus. This truth is why silence and detachment are so powerful. They strip away the clutter, leaving only what matters. They force you to align your actions with your deepest values instead of temporary desires. And when you live this way, you begin to create results so profound that they cannot be ignored. Not because you shouted louder than anyone else, but because you built with discipline, with patience, and with unwavering clarity. The quiet confidence that grows within you becomes unshakable. You no longer need to explain yourself to anyone. You no longer need to prove your worth. You embody it. Every step, every action, every choice radiates the strength of someone who knows their direction. And that kind of presence cannot be faked. It can only be built in silence. It can only be built when you detach from the noise, focus on yourself, and allow the stillness within to guide you into becoming the most powerful version of who you are meant to be. There comes a point when you stop chasing the world and begin creating from within. That point is reached only through silence, only through the discipline of detachment, only through the decision to protect your energy at all costs. The more you pull back from noise, the more you realize how much of your life was spent reacting instead of building. Reaction is weakness, creation is power. When you are reacting, you are a prisoner of circumstances. When you are creating, you are the architect of your destiny. Silence gives you the blueprint, focus lays the foundation, and detachment keeps the structure strong. This shift transforms your entire relationship with time. Distractions make life feel short because they rob you of presence. True focus expands time because it places you fully in the moment, alive, alert, aware. Studies show that a focused mind not only performs better, but also feels more fulfilled. That is because meaning is never found in scattering your attention. It is found in directing it with intention. Each day spent in silence and focus adds up, compounding into a life of depth and substance rather than one lost in noise. The reason so many never rise to their potential is not because they lack ability, but because they lack focus. Talent without focus is wasted energy. Opportunity without detachment is a trap. But when you master these inner disciplines, even the smallest effort begins to multiply. What once felt impossible begins to unfold with clarity because your energy is no longer divided. This is the hidden power of silence. It does not just give you peace, it gives you alignment. And alignment creates acceleration. Detach from the need to prove, and you will begin to move with a different kind of strength. The strength of someone who knows that progress speaks louder than words. The strength of someone who understands that peace is more valuable than applause. The strength of someone who no longer sacrifices their energy to please those who were never invested in their growth. That strength is magnetic. It draws opportunities, it commands respect, and it builds a life that cannot be shaken by temporary storms. Focus does not just sharpen your mind, it reshapes your identity. Each time you choose silence over noise, discipline over distraction, you reinforce the belief that you are in control. Over time, these choices stack, rewiring your brain to operate from clarity instead of chaos. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to reshape itself through repeated action. Every moment you detach from what weakens you and focus on what strengthens you, you are literally rewiring yourself into a stronger, more disciplined, more powerful version of you. This is why silence becomes addictive. Once you taste the strength it gives you, once you experience the clarity that comes from detachment, you will never want to return to the noise because you will have discovered something the world cannot take from you. Inner freedom, freedom from the pull of other people's opinions, freedom from the chains of comparison, freedom from the constant urge to prove your worth. And in that freedom, you rise into the life that was waiting for you all along. The life built not on noise, but on focus, not on chaos, but on clarity, not on distraction, but on the unshakable power of silence. When you begin to live from silence, you stop wasting energy on what is temporary and start investing in what is eternal. The drama that once consumed you feels small. The noise that once distracted you becomes irrelevant. What once demanded your reaction no longer deserves your attention. This is the evolution that detachment creates. It shifts your perspective so completely that what used to shake you can no longer touch you. You rise above it, not because the world changed, but because you changed. And this change is permanent when it is rooted in silence, focus, and self-mastery. The human spirit was not built to be scattered in 100 directions. It was built to channel its energy toward purpose. Silence brings you back to that alignment. It strips away the layers of conditioning, the false beliefs, the borrowed expectations that clouded your vision. In the quiet, you rediscover your own rhythm. You hear the pull of your own calling. You remember that you were never meant to live as a shadow of others. You were meant to stand in your own light. And that light grows brighter every time you detach from what dims it. Psychology shows that clarity reduces anxiety. When the mind is clear, fear loses its grip. Silence is the pathway to that clarity. It sharpens your awareness, allowing you to see what truly matters and what is only noise. This is why the strongest people often appear calm even under pressure. They have mastered the art of focus. They do not waste energy on what they cannot control. They do not cling to what was never theirs to hold. Their power comes from detachment, from the discipline of silence, from the unshakable focus that turns chaos into order. Every time you choose silence, you train yourself to rise above impulses. Every time you detach, you strengthen the muscle of self-control. Every time you focus, you move closer to your vision with precision. These are not small actions. These are the building blocks of greatness. Greatness is never built in noise. It is built in the quiet moments where you choose discipline over distraction, patience over impatience, purpose over comfort. Each choice compounds, carving out a version of you that is resilient, unshaken, unstoppable. The world may never fully understand the power you are building in silence, and that is the beauty of it. You do not need them to understand. You do not need recognition to validate the work happening within. Growth that happens in silence is growth that cannot be undone. It is rooted too deeply to be shaken by external storms. You do not need to announce it. You only need to embody it. And when the time comes, your transformation will be undeniable. Not because you demanded attention, but because your presence will speak louder than words ever could. This is the freedom detachment offers: to live without the constant pull of outside approval, to walk in peace even when surrounded by chaos, to hold focus so steady that nothing can break it. In this state, you become untouchable, not because you have escaped challenges, but because you have mastered yourself. And mastery of self is the greatest power a human being can hold. It begins in silence. It grows through detachment. It becomes unstoppable through focus. And it is the path to becoming everything you were meant to be. The moment you stop handing your energy to distractions is the moment you begin to feel your true strength. It is not a strength built on appearance or recognition, but on something deeper, inner stability. This is the kind of strength that allows you to walk away from noise without regret, to release people without resentment, to let go of outcomes without fear. It is the kind of strength that makes you unshakable because you are no longer tied to what shifts outside of you. You are anchored in something far greater, the calm certainty of your own focus. The world rewards noise, but life rewards clarity. Endless voices will tell you to chase, to compete, to seek constant validation. But clarity whispers differently. Clarity tells you to protect your peace, to channel your focus, to detach from what is meaningless and direct all energy into what is purposeful. That whisper becomes powerful only when you are silent enough to hear it. And once you hear it, you can no longer live the same way. The old distractions lose their appeal. The old cycles lose their grip. You begin to crave the simplicity of focus, the purity of silence, the freedom of detachment. Psychology reminds us that attention is finite. Whatever consumes it consumes you. If you allow your focus to scatter across negativity, comparison, or external approval, you dilute your own power. But when you direct that same energy inward toward growth, discipline, and purpose, you become a force that cannot be ignored. This is not abstract. It is how the brain works. Neural pathways strengthen with repetition, and each time you choose silence over noise, attachment over clinging, focus over distraction, you are literally wiring yourself for resilience. You are not just thinking differently, you are becoming different. That becoming is not loud, but it is undeniable. You begin to notice that you no longer react to what once triggered you. You no longer waste hours trying to prove yourself to people who never valued you. You no longer feel the same pull toward temporary highs because you have discovered something greater, sustained inner power. And once you taste that power, you never want to trade it again for the emptiness of distraction. Detachment does not mean you feel less. It means you feel deeper. Because you are no longer numbing yourself with noise, you begin to experience life in its raw form. The beauty of silence, the clarity of thought, the strength of focus, these become magnified. You stop running from yourself and instead learn to sit with yourself. And in that space, you discover that you are not lacking, you are not broken, you are not behind. You are capable of more than you ever believed. The silence simply revealed it. This is the path of transformation. It is not about escaping the world, but mastering your response to it. It is not about controlling others, but controlling your own energy. It is not about avoiding challenges, but facing them with clarity and discipline. When you detach, when you focus, when you embrace silence, you step into this mastery. And from that place, you live differently. You move with purpose. You act with strength. You rise with peace that cannot be taken because it was built in a stillness no one else could touch. True power reveals itself when you no longer need the outside world to affirm who you are. That kind of power can only be built in silence, where the noise of opinions cannot reach you. In that stillness, you no longer measure yourself by fleeting recognition. You measure yourself by your discipline, your growth, and your ability to remain steady when everything around you tries to pull you off course. This steadiness is not coldness, it is mastery. It is the calm of someone who no longer needs the approval of the crowd because they have found approval within. When you detach from what weakens you, you reclaim what is strongest in you. You begin to notice how much energy you once spent chasing things that added nothing to your growth. Every attempt to prove yourself, every moment wasted on comparison, every cycle of clinging to what was never yours, all of it drained you. But the moment you step back, the moment you withdraw your energy from those patterns, you realize how much strength you had all along. That strength does not come from fighting for attention. It comes from refusing to be moved by anything that does not align with your purpose. Silence is where this strength multiplies. It is where your focus sharpens into a weapon. It is where clarity cuts through the fog of confusion. In silence, you learn patience, and patience is the foundation of every great achievement. Patience allows you to build steadily while others rush. Patience gives you the discipline to keep moving when results are not immediate. Patience teaches you to value the process more than the applause. And patience is born only when you are still enough to hear the lessons silence offers. The mind thrives on focus and the science is clear. The more you direct your attention toward what matters, the stronger those pathways in your brain become. Each choice to ignore distraction is a choice to strengthen discipline. Each choice to detach from noise is a choice to build resilience. Each moment of silence is a moment where your brain rewires itself for clarity and control. You are not just practicing discipline. You are programming yourself to live from strength instead of weakness. This is why detachment is not loss, it is gain. You do not lose by walking away from noise, you gain back your peace. You do not lose by letting go of approval, you gain back your freedom. You do not lose by withdrawing from the chaos, you gain back your clarity. And these gains cannot be taken once they are built because they live within you. They are not dependent on anyone else, they are not conditional, they are yours. From this place, you begin to carry yourself differently. There is a quiet confidence in your steps. There is a calm presence in your energy. You do not need to announce your growth because it radiates without words. People feel it without explanation. They see it without you trying. And that is the deepest kind of power, the power that does not demand attention but commands respect. This is the reward of silence, the fruit of detachment, the outcome of focus. It is the unshakable strength of someone who has mastered themselves. When you build yourself in silence, you no longer fear being misunderstood because your worth is no longer tied to being seen. The noise of the world may overlook you, but that does not weaken you. It strengthens you. For it is in being overlooked that you learn to rely only on your own discipline. It is in being doubted that you discover the fire of self-belief. It is in being unseen that you master the art of focusing not on recognition, but on transformation. And that transformation becomes unstoppable because it is rooted in the one place no one else can touch, your inner world. The freedom of detachment is the freedom to move without chains. You are no longer held hostage by the need to control outcomes or force validation. You understand that your value is not tied to what leaves or stays, wins or losses, praise or silence. Your value is constant. It does not fluctuate with the opinions of others. It does not bend under rejection or rise under attention. It is rooted in who you are, not in what others decide about you. That realization is the beginning of true power. Silence feeds that power by stripping away the noise that once blinded you. It sharpens your awareness, allowing you to see how much of your energy was once wasted on temporary things. When the noise fades, you no longer confuse distraction for purpose. You no longer confuse attention for love. You no longer confuse noise for truth. You begin to recognize the difference between what feels urgent and what is truly important. And when you see the difference, your entire direction shifts. Focus becomes your compass. It points you toward growth, toward resilience, toward mastery. It reminds you that greatness is not built in one moment of intensity, but in consistent choices made in silence when no one is watching. Each moment of focus is a seed. Each act of discipline is water. And in time, the harvest becomes undeniable. You do not have to announce it because results speak louder than words. The life you build in silence becomes proof of the choices you made in discipline. Psychology teaches us that humans are driven by two forces, the desire to avoid pain and the desire to seek meaning. Detachment frees you from unnecessary pain and focus gives you meaning. This is why silence is transformative. It removes the artificial pain created by comparison, by approval seeking, by noise. It grounds you in the pursuit of meaning, which is the only pursuit that truly satisfies. And when your actions are aligned with meaning, no obstacle can break you. Because you are no longer chasing shadows, you are living from truth. This truth gives you a calm that cannot be explained. It gives you a strength that does not waver under pressure. It gives you a presence that requires no words to be felt. You do not need to shout your value. You do not need to demand recognition. You simply become so focused, so grounded, so consistent that your very being speaks louder than noise ever could. And this is the essence of transformation, to detach from what weakens you, to focus on what builds you, and to rise in silence until your presence alone becomes undeniable. The greatest shift happens when you stop searching for power outside of yourself and begin to realize it has always been within you. The silence you create is not emptiness. It is the doorway back to that power. In that space, you are no longer chasing approval, no longer clinging to outcomes, no longer defining yourself by what others think. You are simply present, steady, and unshaken. That presence is the essence of strength. It is not loud, but it is undeniable. It does not scream for recognition, yet it cannot be ignored. When you detach, you learn that most of the battles you fought were never truly yours. You fought to be understood, to be accepted, to be chosen, but each of those battles drained you. In silence, you realize that the only battle worth fighting is the one within, the battle to master your own mind. And once that battle is won, the outside world loses its power to control you. Opinions lose their grip. Rejection loses its sting. Distraction loses its hold. Because the one thing that could ever defeat you, your own lack of focus, has been conquered. Focus is not just a skill, it is a form of self-respect. Each time you choose to concentrate on what matters, you are telling yourself that your vision deserves your energy. Each time you detach from what drains you, you are reminding yourself that your peace is worth protecting. Each time you enter silence, you are declaring that your growth is more important than the noise of the world. This is not avoidance, it is alignment. And alignment is where transformation takes root. Psychology confirms that focus changes the way the brain operates. Neural pathways strengthen where attention flows. This means every moment you choose discipline over distraction, you are literally wiring yourself into someone stronger, calmer, sharper. You are not only creating habits, you are reshaping your identity. You become someone who no longer bends under pressure, someone who no longer wastes time proving their worth, someone who no longer trades their peace for the approval of others. You become someone unshakable. This unshakable version of you is not built overnight, but it is built surely. Each moment of silence, each act of detachment, each choice to focus compounds into a presence that others cannot help but feel. You will not need to explain it. You will not need to defend it. It will simply radiate from the way you move, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself. That is the reward of doing the work in silence. The results reveal themselves without you ever needing to announce them. And so the noise that once consumed you begins to fade. You no longer feel pulled in 1,000 directions. You no longer feel controlled by distraction. Instead, you feel centered, steady, calm. You realize that the strength you once looked for in the world was born in the quiet moments you chose discipline. You realize that true freedom is not found in chasing what the world offers, but in detaching from it and building something stronger within. And from that place you rise, not with noise, but with presence, not with chaos, but with clarity, not with doubt, but with an unshakable belief in who you are becoming. The calm that grows inside you is not weakness, it is a weapon. The world may mistake silence for passivity, but in truth, it is the breeding ground of strength. Silence gives you the patience to wait when others rush, the clarity to see when others are blinded by noise, the resilience to hold steady when others collapse under pressure. It is not emptiness, it is preparation. It is the sharpening of the blade before the strike, the stillness of the storm before it unleashes its force. What you build in silence cannot be destroyed by noise because it was never dependent on it. Detachment is the shield that protects this power. Without detachment, silence can become suffocating because the mind clings to distractions even in quiet. But when you release attachment to what does not serve you, silence becomes freedom instead of confinement. Detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. It allows you to see what is real and what is illusion. It shows you that most of what once felt urgent was nothing but background static. And when you learn to release the static, your vision becomes focused on what actually matters. That vision is what makes your growth unstoppable. Focus then becomes the bridge between silence and action. It is the force that channels your inner clarity into outward results. Without focus, silence risks turning into stagnation. Without focus, detachment risks turning into indifference. But with focus, silence transforms into a source of energy, and detachment transforms into a source of strength. Focus directs all the energy that once leaked into distractions back into your growth, your discipline, your future. This is why focus is rare, because it demands sacrifice. It demands saying no when the world expects you to say yes. It demands consistency when the world celebrates shortcuts. But what it gives in return cannot be measured. It gives you mastery over yourself. The psychology of mastery is rooted in repetition. Each time you choose focus over distraction, you reinforce the identity of someone who follows through. Each time you detach from what drains you, you reinforce the identity of someone who values peace over chaos. Each time you embrace silence, you reinforce the identity of someone who is unshaken by noise. And over time, these identities merge into one unbreakable truth. You are no longer defined by the outside world. You are defined by the discipline you chose when no one was watching. This is what makes transformation permanent. Change that is built on validation crumbles when the applause fades. Change that is built on noise collapses when the noise shifts. But change built on silence, detachment, and focus stands unshaken because it was never tied to conditions outside your control. It was forged in discipline. It was rooted in clarity. It was powered by consistency. And anything built on these foundations cannot be taken away, no matter how the world shifts. What you create from this place is not just success, it is peace. It is the peace of knowing you no longer need to chase what is temporary. It is the peace of knowing your worth is no longer negotiable. It is the peace of living in alignment with your deepest truth. And when you live from this place, the world begins to change around you, not because you forced it, but because you became unshakable in who you are. Peace is not the absence of struggle. It is the mastery of it. The silence you cultivate does not remove challenges from your path, but it gives you the strength to face them with calm clarity. The detachment you embrace does not eliminate emotions, but it prevents those emotions from controlling you. The focus you sharpen does not erase obstacles, but it transforms those obstacles into stepping stones. This is the essence of resilience, to stand unshaken not because the storm has passed, but because you have learned to anchor yourself in the middle of it. Every time you return to silence, you remind yourself that the world's noise is temporary. The chaos, the opinions, the expectations, they are all fleeting. But the growth you build within, that is permanent. Each choice to detach from what drains you and to focus on what strengthens you is an act of rewriting your future. And while the world may not notice at first, your transformation is not hidden. It becomes visible in your actions, your presence, your results. You no longer need to declare who you are becoming because it is written in everything you do. The human mind is wired to seek reward, but most people chase the smallest rewards, likes, attention, recognition. They give away their energy for a moment of validation and then wonder why they feel empty. But when you detach, you stop chasing crumbs. You no longer hunger for what is fleeting. You train your mind to seek deeper rewards, growth, mastery, peace. These rewards require patience, but they are lasting. Psychology calls this delayed gratification, and it is one of the strongest predictors of success. Those who can wait, who can focus, who can endure silence always rise higher than those who chase noise. The discipline of silence sharpens your mind in ways distraction never can. It forces you to sit with your thoughts, to face the parts of yourself you once avoided. This is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Because the parts of yourself that scare you are the very places where your power has been locked away. When you face them, when you embrace them, when you master them, you become whole. And wholeness is what gives you unshakable confidence. Confidence that does not depend on praise. Confidence that does not collapse under rejection. Confidence that is rooted in the truth of who you are. This truth creates a force that is impossible to ignore. People may not understand the silence you choose, but they will feel the strength it gives you. They may not grasp the detachment you practice, but they will notice the peace it brings you. They may not see the focus you build in private, but they will witness the results it produces in public. This is the quiet paradox of transformation. The less you seek attention, the more undeniable you become. And so you rise, not hurried, not desperate, not bound by noise. You rise with clarity. You rise with strength. You rise with a peace that no chaos can touch. And in rising this way, you discover that the journey was never about proving anything to the world. It was always about proving to yourself that you were capable of becoming someone unshakable, unstoppable, and free. Freedom is born the moment you stop being a prisoner of noise. Noise tells you who you should be, what you should want, and how you should measure yourself. It convinces you that your worth is found in comparison, in competition, in chasing what others applaud. But silence reveals a different truth. It shows you that freedom is not about outrunning others, but about returning to yourself. Detachment then secures that freedom by cutting the invisible chains that tie you to opinions, to outcomes, to the need for validation. And focus ensures that this freedom is not wasted. It channels your energy into becoming who you were meant to be. The beauty of silence is that it brings you face to face with your own thoughts. And in that space, you discover how much of your energy has been scattered. You realize how often you surrender your peace for the sake of fitting into expectations that never truly belong to you. You see how much time was lost trying to prove yourself to people who were never looking. But with awareness comes power. Once you see how you've been drained, you no longer allow it to continue. You begin to reclaim every moment, every ounce of energy, every fragment of attention, and direct it toward your own growth. Detachment deepens this shift. It does not mean you no longer care. It means you care differently. You care about peace more than approval, growth more than recognition, truth more than appearances. You release what does not serve you, not because you are indifferent, but because you finally understand the cost of holding on. Carrying unnecessary weight slows you down. Detachment is choosing to put that weight down so you can rise higher, move lighter, live freer. And when you let go of what was never meant for you, your hands are open to receive what always was. Focus then transforms this clarity into momentum. It channels your freed energy into progress. Focus is how you turn peace into productivity, silence into strategy, detachment into determination. It is the discipline of choosing one thing and pursuing it with consistency until it bends in your direction. This is why so few achieve mastery, because focus demands sacrifice. But sacrifice is never lost when it leads you closer to your true self. Every distraction you release, every temptation you resist, every moment you choose discipline over comfort builds into a life that reflects who you truly are. Psychology shows that identity shapes behavior. When you see yourself as someone scattered, you act scattered. But when you see yourself as someone focused, someone resilient, someone detached from noise, your behavior aligns with that identity. And each time you practice focus, you strengthen that identity further. This is why inner transformation lasts. It is not just about changing what you do, but about changing who you believe you are. And when you live from this identity, you stop chasing and start creating. You stop reacting and start directing. You stop being pulled by noise and start being guided by vision. The silence that once felt uncomfortable becomes your sanctuary. The detachment that once felt difficult becomes your strength. The focus that once felt like sacrifice becomes your freedom. And in this alignment, you become unstoppable. Not because the world has changed, but because you have.